Bienvenidos todos aquí al Cripto Café. Ya sabéis que hacemos aquí eventillos sobre cripto, impacto, a ser posible las dos cosas, y este proyecto in English better because for actually we are going to talk about economic space agency, which is maybe the most disruptive protocol I have known until now in all the events, which is very hard to say, and about their book, Protocols for Post-Capitalism Expression, that they will talk about later on. They are doing kind of NFTs of the paragraphs of the book, to sell the book. With nothing more, I let you start explaining EXA, which is a hard thing to do.
It's not that hard. So we are economic space agency. We create new economic space. It's easy, I think. So yeah, like Jorge, thanks and Gabriela, thanks for the invitation. We are really glad to be here. So we are here, and we are like working with EthicHub for the next few days here to. We met them now in Austria in this collaborative finance meeting, which is kind of important, and we're working here to kind of think what we can do together the next steps here, and then we're going to continue to Barcelona. We do the Refi gathering in Barcelona, and then we are at the ETH Barcelona also presenting there, talking about this book. We can put maybe we can simulate them a little bit, and here is the glossary of the book also, which is not in the book yet. It's a GitHub book that will be included. So you can take a look. We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about EXA as a project. We'll talk about where we are, and I'm hoping that we will kind of be able to keep this as discussive as possible. So no presentation mode here, but rather we are here to talk with you. Also, kind of where we are and what we haven't yet done, or what are the problems, and kind of and so on. So if that's okay,
yeah,
we can maybe start. Let's do it. Any opening words, Jorge?
Well,
from you.
Maybe I can introduce a little bit about how is it that we find ourselves in EXA. We've been collaborating since 2015. EXA has even a longer history in trying to engage through finance with the political economy. My role in EXA has been mainly how is it that we bridge this vision of a new economic system into finance, accounting, computer protocols, and in this case, actually, it's along with others in the team, focusing on the politics and the economics of it. So it's a very diverse and multidisciplinary, multidiscursive team that poses a lot of challenges in bridging those discursive gaps, but at the same time, it's been
That's the way you like it. That's the way you like it.
Yeah,
okay.
It's been incredibly rewarding to sort of tap into the fertile ground that lies in that conceptual spread.
Yeah.
So that's what I can say.
Yeah, okay, so great. So we EXA as a team, we have like political economists like me and Dick Bryan. We have some game designers like Pekko Koskinen. We have finance theorists, activists, artists, some legal theorists. So it's like a software engineers. So which is kind of an explicit setup because we've thought that we need expertise for all of these areas in order to together move into this new space where we're trying to figure things out, and it's not easy. Okay, so that's it. That's it. Maybe we can put the next slide, and we have what we're trying to do, what the EXA project is basically about, is navigating towards post-capitalism. And in order to navigate in a world, we need to first locate ourselves there a little bit. And how we humans normally do it is by telling a little story. So we can start with something like that. So we need to tell a story like who we are, what are we doing, what is going on in the world, and what are we going to do about that. So that's kind of our start here. So I can start maybe next with me, like how do I position myself here? So I'm like I was saying, I'm a political economist. I did my PhD in the Helsinki School of Economics, political theorist, also philosopher of economy. I've written a lot about the history of economic conventions, economic concepts like debt and money, market, like how has the economic thinking and practices changed during the history. And so if there's something I've learned, it's really that economy has a history. So it has not always worked like we think it works today, or what is like normal, or what economy means. Not at all. It has a very multi-layered, difficult history with conflicts, all of that. And if it has a history, it then most likely also has a future. And that's kind of the exciting part about this, that or what kind of excites me, that we are now here. Maybe we can put the next slide, which is that we are navigating towards something else already. So just an example. We'll talk about the technical aspects a little bit later, that technical architecture of the protocol architecture. But I want to engage from this economic or political economic perspective first. So one of my favorite finance theorists, Myron Scholes, he was the Nobel Prize winner of the Black-Scholes-Merton options pricing formula, and in his speech at the Nobel dinner, the prize speech, he said that something I think like really interesting. He said that that debt and equity, they are only historical arrangements. The institutional arrangements and the history will show us that their distinction will blur. So what that means is that he was saying that this debt and equity, this basic categories of finance, of funding, they're just historical arrangements. They're just like communication agreements. And he was saying that what economy is, it's made of these shared communication agreements, and they will change. They are historical. They will change. Yes. So this is kind of our starting point, because when we are looking at what we are doing, what the EXA project is, yes, we are utilizing some of the technical developments which are making a new kind of substrate for the economy possible, yes. But from the economical angle, the real possibility of what we are proposing is coming from this breakdown of the economic conventions, economic knowledges that we see happening at this moment. So that means that, and I'm serious about this, that the the categories of debt and equity, they are, the distinction between them, it's harder and harder to make. Where is it with different options? You can actually, it's hard. other assets than money are becoming as liquid or almost as liquid as what we used to think that money is. Fiat money is becoming like this obsolete, like a conversion point where we must go through, even if it's totally unnecessary. There's a different distribution of risks compared to the last century, where right now we as the workers and precarious people are confronted with the risks that were held with the government and the firms before. We've lost the trust in the financial institutions and the central banks right now. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. They're out of the tools. What's happening, and so it's, and I could go on. So I'm just trying to say that it's like there's a flux. There's things are moving. The economy is what it is. What these categories are, they are like they're changing.
Yeah. They're in the negotiation table.
Yes, and so this is like our starting point. That we are right now the economic conventions are changing at least as radically that in the 19th century, like 1840s, that Marx was writing about. There was the discovery of the joints of company in UK, in Great Britain. There was a legislation for 200 years which forbid joints of companies because they were thought harmful, they were thought not good for the people, and this legislation was just changed, and the joints of company was allowed, which kind of meant ability for them to raise money, like a huge amounts of capital, what they needed for the new industrial productions, which were very capital intensive. At the same time, money changed its form to credit. At the same time, they were forced to they had to like really rethink the way that the people were brought into these huge production plants. They had to invent salary work, wage labor, and it led into a totally like a new kind of society organized in a different way. This is the society that Marx was, for instance, writing about. So this is like our thesis that at this time we are at the edge of a similar kind of transformation, and we should go for it.
Yeah, and I think it's important also to, and this is where we can invite the audience to also interact, to highlight that it is very clear that we are seeing the signs of a desire, a need for a completely different way of socially organizing economically, but our current tools are like just not good enough, and we see like this crypto, crowdfunding, they are all like this trying to explore how is it that we can reconfigure ourselves and finding a way to interoperate with our current systems. But again, the desire for something different is in there, and it's definitely the evolution hasn't ended. And one of the things that we're saying is like post-capitalism is already starting to happen. So the question we need to ask is like, what form is going to take? Who gets to decide that form, and how that is governed are critical questions that we need to engage with, and we cannot just let happen. And that's kind of the premises of the economic system that we're proposing. But perhaps we can start like unpacking this idea of post-capitalism. It's already happening by, perhaps from you guys, if you have, you can think of an example in which you see like different versions of capitalism that are already starting to happen, and how are they different, but also importantly, how are just the same in many ways. So and maybe we can engage with those perspectives. What do you think about that?
Sure.
So yeah.
When you talk about post-capitalism, I understand that something is changed. No?
Mm-hmm.
There are like 5 things fundamental to capitalism. That is private property, demand. So what are the 5 of the? I think it's private property, supply and demand, competition, freedom, and incentives. Which of these kind of fundamental things of capitalism really change?
Well, okay, we would define capitalism maybe
Financially.
maybe a little bit differently, financially, precisely. So because also the post-capitalism that we are referring it's clear that we need to. It's financial. It's going to be financial, and one of the books, maybe you can put the next slide, is kind of the what we are trying to do there is to frame like the if you want to frame the capitalism financially, like what defines it, like kind of as a finance theorist, who understand the financial technologies well, and we understand that it creates also different like political questions and problems for us. So we need to like engage finance at the forefront, at the avant-garde where it is, and try to use it to create different socialities. So that's what we are trying to do. So we are framing capitalism financially as the with the questions that who gets to what counts as liquidity, what counts as collateral, what counts as surplus, and who gets to decide these. Like these are the key questions that frame capitalism as a financial system. And in the book, we are trying to create a different. We are like the challenge is that we're trying to answer these questions differently to how they are answered at the moment in capitalism. And by doing that, our thesis or claim is that we are able to create a spread, a financial spread, in a way that how the capitalism defines these questions and how the capitalist system works is just different than the what are the capabilities, what are the what's the stability, what's the expressivity, what is the what are the freedoms in the system that these questions are answered in a little bit different way, and a spread starts to emerge. And people, when they understand that different things are becoming possible, they will start to migrate to this new economic space. And then, on which side of this spread do you want to be when this starts to happen? That's like the financial framing of what we are proposing.
And also what we must mention, why is it that we ended up deciding that post-capitalism was going to be a financial system and therefore predicated on not changes, for instance, of a few of the questions that you made, is that when you open, first of all, like if this is perhaps where my view comes in really strongly as of my background. But when you understand the economy as a network with protocols encoded as accounting practices, and you open those, you create interfaces that make those accessible to everyone, not only to corporate agents like banks or companies, but you sort of like open that capacity to express economically in this network, you can start within the current financial framework renegotiating things like private property. Because I mean, every even private property has potentially its opposite already contained with it. What happens if we can create collective property? But what about the collective property of all the collective? Is that still private property? Obviously it's not, but you're speaking the language of current finance to encode, to challenge the very questions like that. Basically, you are saying, okay, we agree that it's impossible to pretend to create a new social order that is not predicated on finance and money and banking and all of this. But what if we just occupy the language, take it back, redistribute it, and utilize it to express new things.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the book is really like our blueprint or kind of this is where we're trying to explain what we just said there a little bit more in more detail. So what we are going to do next is that, like the key words of the in the title, which are protocols for post-capitalist expression. Let's talk about this. Like, why did we actually, we had different title options, of course, and we had it was not an easy decision in the end to end up with this one, but why we did. So let's talk about those. No.
Yeah. So there's 3 keywords: protocols, post-capitalist, and expression. So let's start with protocols.
Yeah. So, yeah, why protocols?
Okay, protocols.
Do you want to start?
So we can understand a protocol very simply as the codes we utilize to constrain and guide our actions, right, as a network. So accounting, it's a protocol. It's probably the most, the oldest protocol, formal networking protocol that we have, formal record keeping and formal record transitioning. And it's already fully distributed.
And that's why we wanted accounting to be the first word in the glossary. So it starts with accounting,
It's just casualty that it's AC and it's very early on. So yeah, and this is I guess like the following is for actually to expand on, and this was very enlightening for me to really see and understand. And see both historically but also in the present that one of the problems we're seeing right now with our new computational informational mediums is that information flow is so fast, so varied, so without verification that things start to lose meaning. And this is not the first time that, and you see it in blockchain, anything means anything, like in that discourse. And this has happened in the past, and one of the things that Axeli shared with me very early on is that when this starts happening, the politics start moving away from collective decision making or voting or even like discourses. They move into the protocol, and people seek security into like these foundations, and they can become fundamentalist, totalitarian, dictatorial when this happens as a form to like find this ground in the groundlessness. And we're seeing that it's already happening. So it's like, okay, what kind of ground, what different kind of protocols can we provide or engage with that do not end up in one of those like repetitive, well-known solutions that seem very dystopic for the amount of the population we are in the world, right? So, and that's still scalable. So I don't know if you want to expand on that. Actually.
Yeah, sure. So why protocols? Precisely what you were saying is that from the political perspective, well, we talk about semiotic inflation, like arbitrary sign, which is maybe the most important like philosophical like innovation of the 20th century, like which means that well, how meaning works, it's through the arbitrary sign. There's no ground really. There's no God. It's post-truth where we are, the state of the world. And what happens to governance in this kind of situations where there's just like too much information, when there's too much information, you can't distinguish anymore. Like what is important, what's the truth, what was it true, what that person said, where should I go? Which is just another way of saying that there's not enough information, like there's deficit of information. The consequence is the same. The power, like the organization, goes to the protocols. It does, because you can't rely on the level of meaning, on the level of signification of truth anymore for organization. It needs to find a different level or different layer, and that's there are different ways to call it, but protocol is one of them. And we see this like very, very clearly, and that's why, I mean, all the Microsoft, Google, what do they want to do? They want to create these environments, which are they're basically protocols, where you enter and you enter into this ready-made. Let me put it like this. One of my favorite. This is recorded? Okay, maybe I should not say this, but one of my favorite philosophers. Some of my friends will not like this. It's a little bit secret. Rousseau. He's not so fashionable at the moment, but I really like him, in fact. And he has this really great book about education, Emile. I don't know if you might have anybody read it, but he said that there's this young guy, Emile, and he's thinking that what would be the best way to educate him? And the conclusion is that the best way would be that you create this environment where he, as if he was free, he comes there and as if he finds the right questions, but it's this environment which is guiding him to do what he will do. Yes, so it's the same thing. What the Google, Microsoft, everyone wants to create these environments, and what it means is that, and why the power needs to go to the level of protocols is that there is no need to discuss, or there's no need to for dialogue or negotiation. There are no meanings there. Protocols, they just work. They just do things like that. And if you want to be part of that, you need to do that too. Mm-hmm. And that's where if we want to have politics, if we don't want to be speechless, we need to engage with protocols on the design of these interactions. Design like the interaction models, and if we don't, we do not have politics. I guarantee it.
So
that's why protocols. We need to go there.
Perhaps this will be a book, because this is super pivotal point in like the whole framing of even like why our particular architecture, economic stack works and is the way it is. Open it up a little bit, so if this is landing, if it is making sense, we're still working on the messaging and trying to make these very academic framings into more accessible nuggets of relatable information. So is there any questions? Is there any about what this means, or need for clarification, or even like offering potential new framings or examples of how this is true or not true?
Did it make sense?
I think it's too abstract. Maybe it's easier to with comparison. What is not a protocol?
What is not a protocol? So that is
that we call protocols.
Yeah. So as I understand it, by protocols we're talking about like these sort of like rigid rule sets. That's why I said like you can see like Google or like Microsoft or like Apple trying to create these ecosystems with these limited kind of options that, even though they are limited, can be configured or utilized in a way that's like infinitely expressive, but they are not really, because they are bounding already very formally. So, and computer protocols do this, law does this, game rules do this. So perhaps even the gaming discourse can help a lot in understanding that I mean, you can be in a game where you're free to move whatever the game offers, but are you free really? So if you're playing that game, so that's sort of like an example of a protocol, the rules of a game. And usually when these decisions are happened, most people or most players don't notice that they are like being contained in the rules of this game.
Okay, another way to engage it would be to say that one of the key things that has changed from the perspective of the economy of production is that more and more of the productive acts have become immaterial or intangible, so more communicative. So if you want to organize production, it does not happen in the factory floor anymore, so that where you basically organize people in certain combinations and at certain space-time, you're able to organize the flow of production there. When the productive power starts to turn more immaterial, more communicative, how the fuck do you organize that? By protocols, because that's the only way to control or guide like what is potential. Protocols like set the potentiality space, like what kind of actions, what kind of thinking is possible. You can organize that through the protocols. Yeah,
That's a little less abstract.
Yeah.
that's
How do you ensure that those protocols are not biased?
Well, protocols by definition
can't.
are biased.
you can't. Yeah.
So then it becomes a little bit of an art
So it's
and a little bit of a negotiation. What is important is we need to call them out. We need to say, like, this is the game we're playing. The rules of our system, why it works the way it works, is because this and that and that and that are the rules of the game that we cannot change. And what we're trying to do is like sort of like, and that's why it's important to open this discourse, reveal that, and then offer alternatives. But what is important also is that these alternatives have the capacity to modify themselves. They're reflective.
Yeah.
So we want to sort of like democratize the access to the creation of the protocol, but with an escapable necessity of starting with a protocol. So yeah.
One question about, do you see something that things cannot change is in some way a legal certainty? So we have, but that's because decentralization more than for the protocol.
This is what?
I think in my opinion, the decentralization of this kind of protocols is what it makes you can trust on them. Because if they are not, this protocol, they are controlled by so many people that rules can change.
And that's also they seem that they cannot change, and that's why this view of like first we need to call out these things as protocols, and like something that in our journey doing this, and I became really impressed. Like we were setting up a Swiss foundation, and to understand what we were getting into, I needed to like understand the Swiss code and the Swiss law, and then I started noticing that law is like also like a protocol stack, you know, and then at the foundation there's this right for assembly, and then basically the only thing that the proto organization is just a bunch of people together saying we are so and so, and we declare it, and it's written and there's a record, right? And we are offered this interface, the corporation, the limited liability company, C corp, blah, blah, which are already like well defined, their interoperability in the current infrastructure, but there's already all these other lower layer protocols we don't know. And even when we try like with the lawyers, it's like, what if we create an organization that does this? Like, oh, no, we don't know how that works, blah, blah. So they don't want to take the risk of changing, but it is totally changeable. So it just seems that they cannot be changed because the traction of the current system, and it's just very difficult to change it, but it is possible to change them.
Let's move on. So protocols, they are important because they actually set the interaction space.
That's where the power is, basically, if we want to change our future protocols.
So post-capitalism then.
Post-capitalism.
Why?
What's post-capitalism, actually?
So like I said, the post-capitalism for us is to come up with different answers to what counts as liquidity, what counts as collateral, what counts as surplus, and who gets to decide these. That's how the spread to capitalism starts to form.
So yeah, we've claimed, right? Like this, now that post-capitalism is a term and it's becoming a discourse, sort of like entered and saying, hey, post-capitalism from a financial perspective can be, or basically any economic space, any economic system based on finance is predicated on particular answers to these questions. So we detected that only utilizing a lot of the same framework, but just challenging these questions, we can really open up and increase the expressive capacities of our economic system for to transition into post-capitalism, because that's the other thing. It's not like there's this economic space and you need to just drink the Kool-Aid, or like as if you're joining a cult and then all of a sudden you operate in there. It's just like we needed to discover, to map out a way of transition away from the current accounting practices and code in capitalism that answers to those questions, because the answers to those questions are accounting practices and answer them differently.
Yeah, so let's talk about this.
Yeah.
How do we do it then differently? So first one is kind of in the book too, we have like a chapter for every one of these. So how do we change the production? What is production of value into, we expand it in our grammar into something we call performance.
Yeah, so this is the question of what counts as value, which is in there. So in accounting terms. So basically, we have acknowledged that the value forms that are struggling to be expressed is usually because they need to be coerced themselves into a commodity framing, right? They need to be like a service, a good, because that's sort of the background from where
that's the only way that they can enter into the accounting.
Yeah, so we see accounting as a communications protocol and capitalism as a economic communication system. So how things get spoken in this communications network is how value gets framed is as a commodity. So we're saying, okay, we need to step outside of that and create a different account practice that can recognize commodities, but can recognize many other things, right? So we're moving the performance. Basically, we can frame production as a performance. The performance is basically a record of events that happen in space and time. And they allow us to express more abstract value forms, basically anything that can happen that can be verified. Any activity, any set of actions now can be like an economic primitive, an economic primitive value form that is backwards compatible, but also forwards compatible to be able to value like economics activities that, or just activities that, for instance, signify cleaning the air or removing CO2 or increasing sociality, or basically from this data, the performance, then we can have a whole array of metrics that the metrics themselves become like sort of the units of account through which these performance are being measured, and that they are totally communicable in financial terms, and therefore like backwards compatible into the current system. So this new value primitive, the performance, is sort of like the upgrade away from the commodity and into a value form that can encapsulate many more value forms right now that are finding trouble existing: knowledge, science, arts.
Exactly. And then what else? Then new forms of investing, or
what counts as collateral?
Yeah, what counts as collateral?
So basically, this was very enlightening. When I was telling my mom about this and trying to like explain to her in her terms, she's an accountant, and she says like, okay, so what do you mean post-capitalist? Because in accounting, the first thing they tell you is like capital equals assets minus liabilities. So it was like, it's in there in accounting. So how is it that you're challenging? So one of the interesting things is like when I went and searched it, right now in accounting, if they don't say capital, they say equity. Equity is asset minus liability. So it's sort of shifted away, but it's an interesting shift because then it recognizes that equity, in particular right now with equity in tech companies, that there's these tech companies that are valued for billions or even now trillions that produce no profit, but somehow it's like they are valuable. And basically they are able to collateralize that equity and make it liquidity.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, so the container that our accounting systems is already evolving towards, and we need sort of to tap into is equity. So that defines precisely in accounting terms what is valuable, and what is valuable, that which can be collateralized as credit. That's basically the answer. So we've changed a little bit the naming, because it's like equity as we know it as a financial contract, but not also like it's sort of abstracted even further, and we called it stake. So stake is basically within a network that is acting out an economic performance. The equity is sort of like the general category that contains and values that economic activity. And another property of equity is that it's divided in shares, and that the shareholders get access to the outputs. So we went a little bit further and says, okay, so in the current accounting systems, equity is producing dividends as profit. And one of the things that we're saying is like redefining what surplus is basically saying, we actually notice a lot of the rules of the game in the current economic game to be totally biased and having disastrous results, because this particular accounting practice that all the outputs, economic outputs of a particular company need to be converted into profit, and that this profit is the measure by which people decide to engage in a particular economic activity. And we say, like, if we do that, we can still perform dividend redistribution, but it doesn't necessarily have to be profit. We are no longer constrained with the old-time infrastructure, with the necessity of a conversion into money is necessary. Our informational substrates are so much more rich that we can start distributing dividends in all forms. If it's a farm, maybe produce, it's dividends, right? Just as a very simple example. So we can follow this logic of like risking together into a particular set of economic activities that produce a certain kind of surplus, and then create incentives for that risking together by allowing people to participate in the upside of that economic activity in whatever form. So we are extracted away and say, okay, so that equity then can become collateral for credit. And that's already time-tested formula, particularly with the advent of tech companies. So for us, what is collateral for credit is this particular kind of a very flexible equity system, which is we call stake. Now, we've been using this term for a while, but now there's a little bit of confusion, because like many other words, the crypto discourse have taken their own spin of what it means, and sort of like nothing means anything anymore. And like crypto people get confused, like, what do you mean by stake? Well, we mean equity. So
yeah. So, and then credit.
Yeah. So if we are proposing a new monetary system, we're challenging also the question of what counts as liquidity. So that means what counts as money and how it gets created. And if we really want to democratize access to that liquidity and allow everyone and anyone to decide what equity is valuable, the corollary of that, the consequence of that, is that we also need to democratize money. And the way we do it is by creating a pure credit endogenous monetary system that, through utilizing this collateral, stake as collateral for credit, it sets these dynamic credit lines that can flow in both directions. And one of the consequences, when everyone can issue credit, and this credit can transitively convert into any other credit within the network, is that no one has a privilege on the issuance of that credit. So that means there's no interest. So it just makes a much cheaper liquidity creation mechanism, but also importantly, much more stable, because it's dynamic. There's only ever as much credit circulating as the system needs. As soon as a circuit can be closed, it will be closed. I don't know if can some of you raise your hands if you have heard of multilateral credit setup? No.
Multilateral trade.
So basically, what we found out during the research, trade credit setup, is that banks are already like doing this through credit trading, sort of creating, expanding, but it doesn't reach everyone. So these kind of protocols allows us to issue credit and clear credit, and both issuance and clearance are two parts of the same cycle of money circulation within this system. And that means that phenomena like a central authority setting interest rates in order to control the supply, and always being behind the wheel, like turning like this, but then takes 6 months for the wheels to turn. And basically, you're always behind the the cycle. So we go through these cycles of boom and bust. We now can sort of like be closer to the actual value production, to the actual productivity. That information now is endogenous and it's real time and it's a dynamic, elastic, not centralized supply of credit.
So let's move on. So basically, okay, protocols, yes, and post-capitalism, which these protocols that we are proposing are able to express, and the next one is expression.
Can I just like make a little bit of a point? I feel like it's becoming like a blah 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 on my side. So I like to see like if there's any necessity to open it up a little bit.
You say that let's say lots of the value surplus that we have is not quantified right now.
Mm-hmm.
How do you aim to quantify it to be able to create credit from it?
Yeah.
So that everyone.
So we were talking earlier. I think it was you. That measurement is super important. Like basically, accounting is sort of like this very old system of measuring quantities. So that's because that's what those tablets could record. That was the record that was available, and that was the arithmetic was the calculation, the computational framework that was available to that time. So now that we have much more richer substrates, more capable substrates with much more richer data, we can perform like map-reduce operations, right? Like we can really create metrics and analytics that extracts these measurements out of this data, and then we can make those measurements reflected in the as part of sort of like the intelligence reports, for instance, of a particular economic network, and then people value that and say, based on these metrics, these units of account, this accounting intelligence that I'm getting from this, I think that this is worth this much, and we're already seeing it with crypto. Most often, what these things are indexing, and many funds crypto funds investing in this, they are taking measurements like social resonance of the discourse, a number of active participants, like
network health.
Yeah, network health, basically. And maybe they're actually not producing anything, but they notice that there's a correlation of the value of the token in terms of exchange value with those metrics. So that phenomena can also, if we invite people to play this different game, which things are valuable because of how the measurements they are reflecting, and as these measurements increase, these exchange values increase, it becomes like sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy, in which like we just declared a new form of accounting for value that doesn't necessarily is predicated on like extract stuff from earth, convert it into commodities, and then just throw them to the trash. It's like, okay, now we have this new way of economically framing activity and still making financially valuable.
And this is also what we are learning from how finance is already doing it. So they're basically in derivatives. You have weather derivatives, all kinds of things where you can, with which you can hedge and invest with, but they're not like claiming to quantify weather, but just the change, and that can be measured, and we are kind of just utilizing the same kind of a logic here.
That is for the second question. Based on the view that you propose, are you looking to, let's say, tokenize the assets that are not currently seen as creating value in order to pair them with the metrics that you are creating?
Tokenizing the economic activities as equity, as an economic performance as equity, so they can enter the ledger, so they can be recognized as value.
And understanding that tokens are asset liability pairs. They're not some kind of
question.
Yeah.
Codes.
Some of the assets that are present, let's say all tokens or most tokens have, let's say, a finite supply.
Mm-hmm.
How do you tokenize an asset that's abundant and doesn't have affinity?
Well, it's not that what makes them accountable or enter the accounting system is not necessarily that they are scarce, is that they are countable.
Yeah.
So the of course scarcity is one way in which like we guarantee accountability, and we can frame the value based on that. But to enter the accounting, to enter the ledger, the only thing that needs to happen is like you need to be able to count things, and what you can count are events. And how valuable they are, how much people use the heuristics of scarcity to ascribe value to something or some other qualitative index or metric, that is what the network is going to be able to negotiate. But the scarcity is not but one informational aspect. Yeah.
But how do you quantify, let's say, an asset that is not scarce? Like how can people attribute a certain value either growing or declining when an asset is not scarce?
Let me see that if I can
reframe
reframe the question.
So
It's just like the position of quantifiability.
So do you think is a startup equity scarce?
Maybe the best.
It can keep issuing for, I mean, they do. That's right.
It's quantifiable, isn't it?
Yeah, I see. Okay.
It's a little bit challenging because we tend to think of value as because things are scarce, but it's a material view of value.
But these are like, and that's why. Let's go to the next slide, because this is especially about expression. Like how can we express these things in a different way? Or what did we have in the slide? Yes. Yeah. So how do you tie what we are talking about, the like with the that everybody can issue into expression? Okay.
So this is again the network view and the protocol view, in which we can understand, if we already follow the notion that accounting is a protocol and it is a communication protocol, and then there's accounting practice that further narrow down that which is being spoken with this protocol, and that there's an economic network of agents communicating and making decisions through this protocol. It's not voting, it's not like speaking with words, but it's definitely deciding together. And if we see that there's different agents in our current system have used different verbs and different nouns and different adjectives. Some actually can only use like 3 or 4 words, but some can use like a wide array. Well, we're noticing that actually economic inequality can be also described as a function of expressivity in this protocol.
Who can issue?
So basically, who can issue becomes equivalent to who can speak in this system. If you cannot issue, I mean, maybe you can listen, and you can listen very actively, right? Like buying power, but it's not the same power that someone that can issue has. So we're
this is, for instance, concerns all of the existing crypto. Basically, you can't really issue. The issuance is centralized still. It's not decentralized in any of the protocols so far.
So anyway, I think this is also a good pause for more engagement, or do you want to keep moving?
Do you want to engage? Okay, no. Well,
if just for given the opportunity, yeah. Okay.
Have you thought of Black Mirror future? Because you said about everything could be measured. So if everything could be measured, maybe we can go to Black Mirror
hyper financialization. Yeah. Well, this is
cancellation.
Yeah, this is the art in which, like, part of designing an economic network has to consider what should we measure and count, and what should we not. And as an organization, we're trying to use our own protocols, and that question comes all the time, because sometimes the act of measurement changes the very presumptions that you were starting with in order to decide that you wanted to measure that.
Yeah, but our thesis kind of, we're going there in any case. There's like, it's inevitable. So with the substrate that is coming, or where the economy is now moving on to and becoming programmable. It just means that it's gonna start to resemble something like an expressive medium.
No matter what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Because,
So now that's why we need, that is the reason that why we need to engage with the protocols. What do we want? How to be measured? And if we don't, we can be sure that they will in some way.
And how about enforcement? Because you could write the laws, but how do you enforce that the protocols are going to the ground, the people?
Oh, there's two aspects to enforcement. The first one, which I thought that's what you were trying to say, is like how do you preserve the integrity of the protocol execution? Which the short answer is technology and like social verification. But then how do you verify that it goes to the people? That is the thing, right? Like we think that we can bias. There's things that we can pre-decide in the protocol that we're proposing, and there's things that we cannot pre-decide. One of the things that we can sort of pre-bias in these games is making it collaborative, right?
Yeah.
Like mutual stakeholding, we'll talk about later, is like making it collaborative. But whether it's applied to support people or whether it's applied to create more crypto kitties, I mean, we have no control over that. That's the area of discourse and the area of like the social activism and whatnot. But what we want to make sure is that at least those that right now don't have the capacity to enter the dialogue can economically.
But also, social activism in Occident, it's really easy, but not in other parts of the world. So,
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, we're facing the problem in this. We're utilizing computer protocols, and it's predicated on whether there's access to those things from literacy. So it is an issue.
Yeah. And what?
perfect.
Yeah. Good. So and what was referring the mutual stakeholding.
Yeah.
Our new secret handshake. It's kind of it's like I forgot what I was going to say.
Maybe yeah, here is the next slide. So should we talk about this economics mutual stakeholding?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So this is an important question, right? So we're saying, okay, if we want to create a new economic system and we know that we are setting rules for the particular game, and then we're constraining agents to play particular games, what sorts of base rules we can be open about, and encode still financially. And one of the guiding principles is like, okay, if we're really democratizing finance and giving access to everyone the capacity to issue, then the need to create investment, liquidity, surplus, all of that has to be possible without creating central without requiring central authorities, although those can be created. And how the network works, so the network protocol works, is it all starts by the capacity of two economic agents to enter into a mutual stakeholding relationship. Basically, exchange equity and agree that equity is collateral for credit, and that equity represents a co-performance agreement. So in that little contract, it's like the equivalent of a connection in a network, and information flows through that. Offers, exchanges, credit, value, commodities, accounting records, like it's all happening through this link. So what we're saying is like with that primitive, you can create a network that then transitively has access to every other part of the network through this link. So that's why we refer in our pyramid stack as our protocols. Everything is distributed. It's because it's a network topology that doesn't require hubs.
Exactly. So now I remember what I was going to say was, and let's go then there, but it was really that we're moving like from social networks to economic networks, which it's a different in social networks, you network by liking, friending, forwarding messages, sharing shit. That's how you network. But in economic networks, it happens differently. It happens through this creating these economic relationships, like mutual stakeholding, crediting, these kinds of things. So it's like its nature's different. It's like a network with consequences, and that's what we think that it's gonna. When the economic networks are what social networks were for Web 2, the economic networks are for Web 3. That's the thesis, and this is the protocol stack, or the grammar with which we can express these networks. Do you wanna talk a little bit?
Any questions, Fine? Yeah.
When you talk about like mutual stakeholders, do you see, let's say, the way of moving two different assets would be maybe like LPs, like liquidity provider tokens?
Maybe a what?
Like LPs, liquidity provider
Okay.
tokens. So two assets put it into one, and then you can, let's say, use that liquidity to. Is that
It's in banking world, because every crypto world has come up with its own sort of names for banking world. But basically, it's just collateralized credit.
Yeah.
And if that particular configuration is what it means in the crypto world, which again, it's all sort of terms that have
Yes.
meaning anyway. If you're not like
So
24
shadow banking, that's how it works.
Yeah.
They take any kind of good collateral for credit. We're just generalizing that basically.
Yeah, and sort of like making it a general protocol instead of a niche. Which this is not so
just
niche anymore. It's
certain agents can use. This is not like
family wealth funds and stuff like that.
who evaluates
the collateral.
the figure of the, let's say, value
The network.
created by that?
Every agent. Yeah, that's the
How do you get, let's say, the right people to evaluate?
How does Mejorar do it?
I mean, I think, I don't know too much about this, but let's say in DAOs, you might have an issue in finding the right people to evaluate said proposals, whereas some other proposal might need other evaluators. And there's, let's say, discrepancies in how you find these.
So this is actually it's a very legitimate question, and there's a very interesting side effect of creating this thing that you have co-performance, co-liquidity, co-investment. Is usually you want to do this with the people that actually you understand because they are tied to your own economic activity. The same way, like for instance, EthicHub has the validator, in the consumes coffee. He knows how to value coffee because it sells coffee. And actually that sort of like the introduction of this concept of the validator, I thought it very useful when you were explaining EthicHub. And it is basically, you don't need everyone to understand everything. You just need those that actually are interested in their own economic relationships to understand why they're getting there. Yeah. So it does remove a lot of reliance on the third-party specialized speculators. It brings the responsibility back into the productive nodes. They enter in this collaboration.
How do startups do it? They seek for those VCs that actually understand them.
No, I think
just generalize.
Is more like I sell coffee to a roaster. How much credit I give to him? That's the way I measure his capability.
So so the commercial graph, the credit graph, and the investment graph are one with each other instead of having these third parties mediating those graphs.
This is kind of one way to think about it. What we started to work with a little bit, just like flash loans. It's a new kind of transaction you can do. The same here. It's this is a new kind of a transaction which includes simultaneous mutual stakeholding, opening of credit lines, and
credit issuance.
Yeah.
Instead of just paying. And
at the same time, it's a new kind of something that it's simply not possible with the existing grammar. Yeah. So, do you want to?
If people are interested in expanding,
because we only have 2 more hours to talk.
I think that is a lot.
Yeah.
If not, people will
Yeah.
starting to leave.
Yes.
So
So I don't know if you how many technical people there are. We could.
how many people are interested into discussing the technicalities of the protocol implementation for a post-capitalist economic system?
Right now.
Right now,
Brief,
for the next 2 hours.
Brief picture. So this obviously
So the consequence is that not many,
not many.
and we have, if you have 10 minutes, so let's say that
Just very quickly.
very quickly, and then we move to the book and how to engage, how to join.
So basically, we have distributed accounting protocol. We're calling it distributed bookkeeping protocol, which inspired actually this distributed computational protocol, which is the first layer, because this also requires a new form of doing distributed computing than a central blockchain. And within that distributed computing framework, we have things like authentication, identity, and authorship as part of a required set of protocols that are premised or on which accounting and exchange are predicated on. Then we have the financial layer, which implements this accounting protocol, but also distributed exchange protocol. And why is everything distributed? It's like what otherwise we as programmers try to think as a client-server architecture, where you need this central hub and you need all these clients, can be actually pushed into the edges as protocol, like as a distributed protocol. And without getting into much into detail of how that's possible, once we exit the client-server paradigm, we can see that with this stack, that we can create these networked assets. Like we can create a stake of stakes that that expands across the network, or a credit of credits, and like these distributed financial instruments that now are not only constrained bilateral relationships like old style accounting, but actually multilateral, multi-peer, multi-step, multi-wrapped networked assets. And then finally, on top of those capacities, we implement the economic space protocols, we call it, which is basically this network making through this mutual staking that puts into operation all of the other ones. That's the true version of it.
Yes, and we're very proud of it. It's very impressive. So yes, so now the last thing about the book and how we are about to go with it. So what we want to do. So we are, in fact, we're really proud that this UK-based publisher, Minor Compositions, which is well known in the radical political circles, they wanted to take on it's like our economic paper, our economic white paper, what we were writing. It just became very thick. So and they wanted to take it on as publish it as a book. So fine, and they are also like big proponents of open access publication, but they don't have an economic model for that. So part of the book is that we did kind of sure we can sell the book, and the commercial distribution starts in November, but we want to think of a different like economic model also for open access publication, but also we want to turn the book, this object, into a discourse, into something that's alive, has more participants than the three authors, and develops and evolves. So we develop a strategy for that. Next slide, which is this, that what we've done is that we've partitioned, we've divided the book and the glossary words. There are around 120 glossary words, and the paragraphs of the book into 729 units of discourse. That's what we call them. They're units of discourse. They're like these quantums of post-capitalist knowledge, or they're like these non-fungible components of the EXA knowledge base. That's how we think these paragraphs of the book. And we want to, so this is what we've done. and they're made into NFTs, and we want to now invite people to start co-publishing this discourse with us. So how it works is that we have 729 NFTs, when you get one, you choose a paragraph of the book or glossary word that kind of speaks to you, that you think is important, but I think maybe you can take some important title of the book, which will be very valuable, or the ending, I don't know, of the book, and you choose it, and when you buy it, or when you acquire this unit of discourse, it's at the same time revealed at the book's website for everybody to read. We've developed by one of the team members, Pablo, one of the really good designers in the team. He's created this book, open access publication, but ultimate open access publication experience. So the whole book is there, the audio book is there, the footnotes are there, the glossary words are there. It's like you can change. I wish you could, in fact, show it, but maybe I forgot to put it there.
Yeah.
You can change the lighting. There are different modes that you can read, and it's really a great experience. So when you buy the NFT, it's revealed. That paragraph is revealed for everybody to read in the website. So, and the idea is that you pay for the commons, and when all the paragraphs are taken, the entire book is there for everybody to read, to download, to do whatever you want. So that's good. Expand the discourse.
So
What was that?
So basically, you not only get an NFT, but you get a bunch of rights. Actually, this NFT gives you access to sort of like a members area, or the collectors area, and basically it allows you to curate a network, to invite others into the discourse to get those NFTs. It gives you.
It's not public sale. It's invitation only.
Yeah, and it's a curated. We want to curate it as it expands. You get obviously the capacity of publishing that NFT in different markets and mediums, because we want to. One of the things that we speak in the book is the notion of markets as economic communication networks, economic media, and it starts sort of like playing with this idea of how is it that knowledge and value and market exchange value integrate, what gives a discourse unit its value, same way, like same game for crypto, whatever it is that it's NFTs out there, and it gives you access to the private sale.
The PDF, when you buy
the PDF,
they discover the whole story, means that when you get the NFT, you also get the PDF of the book at the same time. And if you want, you can also get the print version. So if you want to get one today, just either select the paragraph that you want, or leave us your email, and we will get in touch with you when the operation starts, and then you can come and select your NFT paragraph from there.
Yeah, and once all,
and then it's an option.
Yes, it's an option. It's a financial option. Once all the NFTs have been bought, you automatically, the book becomes this shared fractionalized NFT, literally fractionalized by the paragraphs, and it creates a DAO. And from then, it's up to the network that was curated to decide the future of the discourse, like which other NFTs to launch, and basically what initiatives are going to be taken to nurture the discourse and utilize it to direct its future. So that's the game.
That's the plan. Jorge will take your email addresses if you're interested in the book.
The book, physical book, comes as a add-on attached to the NFT, but what we're selling is the NFT, the access to this network.
Not the book.
Yeah, not the book.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it.